about you guys? How are you all doing? Yeah? That's good. Kids are all excited for the holidays, all the decorating and stuff that's going on. Yeah.
Halloween, I mean,
Yeah.
I saw your stuff out there, front yards on you.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
And my daughter, my oldest, is like, when are you gonna put real decorations up? Like, these are for kids.
Oh my God.
Because she's older now. She's in high school now, so
Oh my God.
yeah.
What year, what grade is she in?
Freshman.
Oh, she's a freshman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Morning, yeah. Yeah.
Makes you feel old, doesn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. I'm feeling it. Hey, Marge. Can I get you a agenda? Yeah. Yes. Yes, I think it should already have started, right? We're good to go at 6, right, Amber? Okay. I just want to wait for Scott to come back in. Yeah, it sounds good.
You should come over here. There's a free seat right here.
Yeah, this one's being recorded. Yeah.
Every day was booked.
Yeah, no problem.
All right. So if I can have everybody just turn on your mics just so we can get started. I want to call the Ad Hoc Rat Abatement Committee meeting to open at 6:02 p.m. And just so that everybody that's watching at home or wherever they're at knows who's here today, if you could just introduce yourself, and if you're an elected official or hold a position, share your position. So we could start over here.
Alderman Scott Lennon.
Amber Dunn, Administrative Assistant to the City Administrator.
Hello, Margaret Paul, City Clerk, and also Berwyn Public Health District Secretary.
Hi, Clayton Riggin, Berwyn Public Health District Health Officer / Inspector.
Don Miller, Zoning Board of Appeals, City of Berwyn.
Mary Beth Arvanella, 7th Ward Alderman.
Joe Carmichael, 8th Ward Alderman.
Rob Pabon, 5th Ward Alderman. So today, before we get started, just want to open it up for public comment. If anybody here wants to make a public comment, this is an opportunity for you to share, for us to hear from you, listen to you, learn from you. Public comment is not necessarily a dialogue, but if we do have information, we'd be happy to share back. All right, some people want to get home before 8 o'clock today. They know my track record. All right, so we're going to jump in, but before we do, we have a couple different things on the agenda today, as you all have in front of you. And so I just wanted to give a little bit of an overview and kind of catch folks back up to speed since it's been a minute since we've met as a committee. And so recently we've had Amber give us a presentation on some research that she has done through the City of Berwyn on the potential rat abatement solutions and strategies that are out there right now, as well as information on rats in general, right? What we need to know about them, how do we approach this issue. And so we received that at our last committee of the whole meeting, and that opportunity got us to be able to review some of the things that the city is reflecting on and thinking about in terms of strategies moving forward. Before that occurred, we had been meeting for several meetings, several months, to put together a strategy and a plan as well. And I just would like to say that I am really excited that there's some things that we were thinking about and that we had found on our journey while doing this research that the city is now incorporating into potential plans to address this issue. So thank you for the work that you're doing, and hopefully we could, talk about that a little bit more today to identify what are strategies that, connect to what we had discovered as a group, what we really want to push forward, and what we hope is funded and supported by the city. So we're going to kind of go through some of the, just review some of the strategies that were shared with us, and then kind of talk about some of the major ones that stand out that maybe we can give some guidance to the city on. We're also going to take some time today to review some of the strategies that we came up with and recommendations we came up with as a committee that maybe still haven't been addressed yet, right? And so that we can put together additional guidance and recommendation to solve this issue, to mitigate the rat problem in Berwyn. And then we're going to basically come up with like our major, like solidify, the main things that we want to put together in a communication at our next council meeting for city council to vote on, to make sure that this moves forward, that city council supports this and that the committee supports this work too. So that's just a brief overview. Would love to get started with the information that was provided to us, mitigation strategies, as well as the presentation. There are a couple of things that I think we can have a conversation about today. One of them is thinking about the feral cat program. I know that's something that we had talked about in our committee before too. It's been brought up a couple different times, different ways. I know Ms. Hardecker brought it up a few times while she was doing research and looking at other cities and the work that they're doing. And so it'd be great for us to talk about that and what we would like to see the city do moving forward on that. There's also the community outreach and education, which I think is really important. And that's something that I think we felt really strongly about in this committee, and making sure that people had the information they need to address issues when they see them, but also to better prevent these issues from happening in their neighborhoods, in their blocks, on their property, and supporting their neighbors through that. And so we'd love to talk about that with you all and see if you have ideas as to how you would want to see that be fleshed out and grown and developed. And then I think the last piece was the CSO strategy that Mayor Lavero put forth around, seeing if CSOs can support efforts when there are blight issues and being able to go and contact residents. Now, I just want to say for the record that I know that our committee has talked a lot about the rat issue and its intersectionality with a bunch of different issues that we face in the city, from trees to leakage with garbage, things like that, and also mental health. And so I think for myself, and I know that this committee has talked about this a lot, that it'd be really important for us to consider the benefits and the risks or the consequences of getting law enforcement involved when it comes to issues like blight, as something that could potentially escalate or just create a different dynamic between us and the residents when it comes to this issue. I want to make sure that residents feel supported. We are being on top of issues when there is a serious blight happening, but that they don't feel shamed or attacked or punished by this, and that we can work together and solve those issues. And so I know that some folks might perceive CSOs in a different way and have different experiences with officers, and so I'm curious to bring that up in front of the committee today to kind of get your feedback on what you think about that. And then there's also just, some concerns I think that many aldermen have had around CSO's capacity right now. I mean, we have some stuff that's happening when it comes to parking in different areas of the community where we definitely need more officers supporting residents that are dealing with, parking issues on their blocks. And so definitely want to lift that up and talk about that with you all. And so those are the three sort of major points. If there's anything else that was in the strategies document that you think we should be talking about as well, would love to hear that. I think the other piece was the ordinance, which I think is huge, and that's already being worked on, and in terms of making sure that we have rat abatement at construction sites anytime there's work being done or grounds being broken. But I think that's already being put forward. So we'd love to open it up for any of those, and we can start off with the feral cat program if folks are comfortable with that, and kind of talk about what your thoughts are on that opportunity.
I would say that with winter coming, what happens with those cats? Who's going to house them? And are we going to find families to take them in, or how are we going to do this?
No, feral cats
can
aren't
stay
taken
out?
in the wintertime.
Yeah.
There's a way that you can create shelters for feral cats using old coolers and other kinds of things, and that's used quite a bit in my neighborhood by people who take care of feral cats.
Oh.
So they're always left out on the street, and they're you don't have to adopt them and bring them in,
Even in the winter, huh?
even in the winter.
Okay.
I just want to also say is it would take us some time to put together a program, so we probably would not be kicking off things in regards to feral cats until the spring.
Okay.
Yeah. Any other questions on that?
Well, on the feral cats question, like to give me an idea, like for the size of the city of Berwyn, how many feral cats would we have to do this project? And I mean, 20, 30,
And
100?
would you put them in areas that are, you know,
More strategic, where there's
more
already hot
strategic
spots.
areas?
Yeah.
Right. Because, you know, I mean, I think I've gotten one complaint in my ward, and but we have a lot of possums and a lot of families
Okay.
that have street cats, right? So I've never seen a rat in 28 years. But, so yeah, are you going to put them at places strategically and see if that helps?
Now, with the feral cats, okay, I'm not that familiar with it, but with the feral cats, are they like fed periodically, like to keep them healthy or whatever, and then it's monitored, and then so that you don't overfeed them, obviously, because then they're not going to want to
Right.
kill the rats and possibly feed on them. So
Yeah,
how
so
does that program?
What I've gathered, and definitely you can feel free to fill in as well, that the program, if we were to adopt a program, it would be in partnership with some residents who would be, shared info with, oriented to this process to make sure that they know how to feed, when to feed, how to take care of the feral cats in a way that does make them effective, and so there would be something for that. Amber, if you want to talk a little bit more about the coverage, or like where you have seen like this is most effective, if it's targeting the hot spots or if it's targeting general areas, I'd love to hear more about that too.
Yes, so it would be dependent on residents volunteering to take in a working cat. And so that would limit us to, as far as like where we can place them. We were thinking of trying to place them in areas where we do see a lot of rat reports. So it would be kind of sporadically around the city. We do have a lot of reports in the south and northeast side of Berwyn, so we may want to start there. But again, it's dependent on resident participation. I think we would probably start with maybe 10 cats.
Okay.
And then move forward from there, always kind of monitoring the ratio between prey and predators, because if we get too many, then we're going to create more problems, so we're going to want to balance that very carefully. And so that's why the city, we have to have a partnership with the residents, because we have to know where the cats are and be monitored the rat reports around where that cat is. They have a feral cat who is not being fed has a much larger range than one that is being fed, but we want them to stay in an area and that is why the residents will feed them twice a day, so that they stay within that area, but they have a pretty large territory. And then that's the other part is we don't necessarily want to put all the cats in one place. We want to spread them out so that they're more effective. But as far as how many cats, that's going to be determined as we go through this process of monitoring that prey-predator ratios.
Then I guess another question I have on these cats, do they have like a monitor on them or something like that where they can be tracked or?
No, but
No.
I would love to do that, but I don't think we have the resources to do that. But the resident who is caring for that cat, they would be the ones kind of letting us, so yeah, they come to eat twice a day, they're in the area. But as far as like their travels, no, we won't be able to know that.
You won't know that, okay.
And did you say, if I remember right, they're spayed?
Yes, all of the feral cats are neutered and spayed.
Oh,
Neutered and spayed, okay.
Would we, like, pay a fee to the shelter that has the cats, and do they rotate them in and out, or you know?
No, once the resident adopts the working cat, that is their cat. The resident will be responsible for the care of that cat more moving forward, but the city would be responsible for the startup. So whatever shelter that comes with the cat, the adoption fee of the cat, that would be an initial cost that would be incurred by the city.
So Amber, I have 2 residents that have outside cats.
Okay.
So I will connect you with them
Oh.
to see if you can see, what they do.
Okay, thank you.
Can you share a little bit about, you brought us like a program that you were looking into that does this. Are there a couple, like, would you be willing to like look into a couple different other examples to kind of think about like how this could work and maybe find some more, okay.
Yeah, absolutely. I've done a fair amount of research, but there's no end to research. It just keeps going. And so, yeah, I will look into that. And then also the Treehouse Humane Society does have a very extensive waiting list. So I've been getting resources from residents about other shelters that have an abundance of feral cats that we might be able to create an in-house program that might be more cost-effective for us and easier to monitor. But that is something that when we kind of, if this is the direction that the city wants to go, that's when we kind of start ironing out the wrinkles of the how.
Do you know what sort of requirements or what sort of process the Treehouse organization has that we would have to implement, or is it just like we get the cat, we're good?
The resident has to, there are certain requirements for the residents. I have it in here. They look at like, are there other animals present? Are there other cats present? Is there any hazard to the cat? Any possible hazard to the cat? So like, I wouldn't want to put a cat right on Harlem Avenue, right? Because that would be dangerous for them. So there are certain requirements for the residents, not necessarily the city, to implement the program.
And so, like, when I was doing research on the feral cat stuff and looking at the Treehouse organization, I think Oak Park had said that they had reached out and like tried to get on the waiting list or something, and it's like an 8-year waiting list or something for
Right.
that. Like, if there's that bottleneck there, what's not preventing it at like from somebody just going to a different shelter or something?
Nothing.
Nothing.
No. I mean, we can create our own program, model it after the Treehouse Working Cats program, just and see if there's anything in their program that we want to augment or we want to pivot on, and essentially bring in cats from other shelters, because there are shelters that have an abundance of feral cats. That's one thing that I'm not sure. We have to make sure that we're not bringing house cats in and making them feral cats, because they might not have the same instincts as a feral cat. So that's an important part of it. But there's no reason why we couldn't do this with another shelter.
So I would like to recommend that we support you continuing to research this and figure out, what sort of plan could be put together that, with your background, of course, like is safe for the ecosystem, the local ecosystem is also going to be effective, and that, it's timely and urgent, right? That like we would be able to pivot quickly enough to our own program or to a different program if needed. Does anybody else have any thoughts on that? Disagreements?
I just had a question. Did you check with the Cicero shelter, the one that we help subsidize?
I have not reached out to shelters
Okay.
yet because I was waiting for direction.
Okay.
I mean, that's another good lead maybe too, yeah, for sure. So do I have a second to put that in a communication to support moving forward with that?
With the,
The
Yes.
feral cat?
Yeah?
Yep.
Okay.
Second.
Okay. Perfect. Do we need to all vote on this, or is this something that you all feel good about? You can kind of signal.
Yeah,
Yeah?
no, we're good with it.
Okay.
yeah.
Don?
I'm okay with it.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm all right.
Perfect. We're making progress. So I would like to pivot us a little bit to the community education strategy that you shared. Would love to open it up once again if anybody had any reactions to the report or any ideas of how we can do this in a way that is inclusive and accessible and make sure that everybody that needs this info is able to receive it. And that we're bringing in community into it as well as it being a community education program.
Well, I think, if I recall correctly, the communications department, didn't they create a pamphlet that they passed out to the community? Maybe have that done more often. I thought that pamphlet was great. It had a lot of information on there. Make sure it's in Spanish and in English, because I think that, to educate the residents on how to report a sighting if they see one, so then we can know where to send
Yeah.
our company that abates, so that they can get to the area faster than just letting it go and letting it go, because some folks probably do not know how to report it, so it goes unseen.
Yeah.
So-
Yeah, and one of the things that we already addressed was that people were feeling like rat abatement wasn't coming out, so the company had switched to putting up signs and marking when they were last there, which was a big thing just in terms of people feeling like the issue was being addressed. And then I remember us talking about adding some sort maybe that communication informational packet to the alley cleanup form, as being like part of what was being distributed with that alley cleanup kit. And I don't remember if we finalized that and put that in there or not, but that was one of the things we talked about.
Yeah.
I think now with winter upon us, right, is a good time to maybe send that out, maybe with the water bill or something, that pamphlet.
Yeah. No, that sounds good. And I think being that it's about to get really cold, maybe it's a good
Right.
time to look at the alley cleanup form too, to see if we can add something to that or attach something to it for folks to have a little bit more information. I think for folks that don't know, we did a couple of alley cleanups over the past years, and I think they were really impactful because we had folks there at the cleanups identifying burrows, folks in the community that have had experience with this and have been trying to figure out how to solve it on their own and doing some good individual research. But I think that it helped educate neighbors on like, okay, that's a burrow. No, that's something else. Okay, in order to find the burrow, you need to chop down all your weeds, right? It might look like a lot of work, but you can't find what you can't see. And so like those types of tips that were being shared and real common sense, like practical stuff, I think help people feel like, oh, I can tackle this even without this crew here. I can look into it and monitor it. And so putting together some of these tips, right, of like just being able to help people identify where there might be problem issues, or if you see something, a hole going underneath your garage, right? We talk about this a lot, Don. Like that's definitely a red flag, right? Reach out and see what you can do. But just having somewhere where we can have those tips and FAQs, maybe, to be able to really equip residents with support so they feel good. I mean, I know that we always see things on social media as electeds, and folks will reach out and say, hey, I'm having this issue, or having this problem. And a lot of times, people will send a number, or they'll send like a link to something, and then people feel good, like, oh, I got the information now, right? So like just making that more accessible to folks, I think is really important. I also want to pick your brains though on just like, how do we, we have the alley cleanup model, and that's something that's supported by the city now, which I think is great. But like, how do we bring residents into this? Because I think that that's like another layer of this work that we've all talked about, that the city needs to do more. The health district needs to be a part of this, right? The business community needs to be a part of this, and residents need to be a part of it. So how do we bring community into this education piece for folks? I think you had mentioned maybe like a volunteer group, right, and things like that. But just would love to hear from other folks as to like, how do we make this a peer learning experience? Like, how do we get people to support each other on this, so it's not just a top-down thing, hey, we're telling you how to keep your backyard, clean? How are we getting community members to the table to support each other when it comes to education?
Well, I want to go back to the communications part really quick because, like I said, about 2-3 weeks ago, I got my first complaint.
Hey, Beth, could you speak up? We can't hear you.
So I, 2-3 weeks ago, I got my first complaint from a resident that they saw a rat. So a couple things that they were saying was, one neighbor doesn't clean up their dog feces, right? And then there was somebody across the way that had a bunch of overgrown weeds. So what I did was put a letter together and put it in everyone's mailbox, just talking about, please clean up after your pets, no bird feeders, different things. I had maybe 5 or 6 bullet points of, what we should all be doing to keep our community clean and free from rats. And I put it on the whole block.
Yeah.
So, I mean, even communication like that from an alderman in certain areas that are really hot might help, and to tell that resident, right, if it's them that's not cleaning up after their
Right.
dog or anything, to be more conscious of those things, I think.
Right. You're kind of just reminding them of the
Right.
the social contract we all have with
Yes.
each other. Like, hey,
I've seen folks with, stacks of wood, right? Because they have a fire on the weekends. Well, that's a perfect hiding spot for rats. So, I talked about that as well in my letter to residents, but.
would you be willing to share your template with us just so we can take a look at it?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll send it to you tomorrow.
I would agree on the letter. I think what we need to do is connect with the residents. If there are 1 or 2 residents with rats on that block, we can give the pamphlets out, but there should be a letter from the city saying there's a rat sighting, and maybe a checklist that could be on there saying
Oh, that's a good
overgrown
idea.
weeds, piles of lumber,
Right.
whatever it may be, to give them kind of checkpoints of where we think they are or where they are. And we personalize it with that individual or that house, but then also maybe drop the letter off at other houses as well. Because
sweet.
until we connect directly with the resident that has the burrows and things, that I would think most residents know they have burrows because they're seeing rats, but maybe they don't. Maybe they don't go in the backyard that much or whatever.
Right.
But if we have a letter, the rat pamphlet, basically, that would help. But then also follow up. Who's going to follow up on this? The city goes out there, either, gives them a letter, checks the boxes. If they go back in a week or so and don't see anything getting done, then do they give them a ticket or a warning, shall we say?
Right.
Just to get their, attention to it, and there needs to be follow-up from there. I think that's really the key one, is connecting with the resident or business that has the problem, and then go from there.
Yeah.
Same with, Alderman Carmichael had mentioned, we could go out and bait an alley, and it'll say May 5th, but then it's October 5th. And have they been out there? I mean,
Right.
can there be maybe we get involved in this, a little kind of closeout?
Right.
You know, hey, the vendor took care of this, maybe we send a little survey out or drop some out, do you see any rats? Just so we can say, we're good here,
Right.
and then let's move on to the next area.
Right.
And then on the alley cleanups, how many requests have we had for those
Yeah, I'd like to see that.
alley cleanup kits?
I don't think we have any, but I don't think we've also
We
shared
didn't-
it.
We didn't really promote it
Yeah.
this year.
Yeah.
I mean, I used them when we did the depot, because they were easy to
Yeah,
grab
yeah.
all that stuff, because you
Yeah.
could use it, but it
Yeah.
might be another outreach.
Well, I think it would be great if we could take this opportunity once again that we're about to hit, winter, to maybe have something prepared once spring hits for
Sure.
folks that are doing spring cleaning, doing yard cleaning. For us to really blast it so folks know that they can do this.
Sure.
Yeah, because I'm not sure how much has been out there for it. I don't think we really put it out there. in
We could
social
put it on,
media.
if we're giving somebody that letter, we could have, a link to it or a little sentence on there saying, we do have kits for alley cleanups.
Right.
Might be an
Right.
option.
Yeah.
So here's, when I called, right, for my resident who called me to report the blight, of course, I reported it, right? But then the blight department gave me the form. So if next time I get a resident, they can fill this form out. So they have those check boxes that you're talking about. The weeds, the trash, fence gates that are not, that are falling apart, abandoned junk cars, vacant buildings or structures. So, I mean, there is some checklist here, but maybe, I don't know, that pamphlet was pretty full with information because it was in Spanish and English. So I don't know that we can add any more to it.
Right.
I don't know, I think that another thing that I see, not so much by me, but in other areas is, the garbage. Folks should be asking for another garbage can and they don't. Because then garbage is spewing out and the rats are getting to it because they're trying to pack all their bags into 1 or 2 cans. But I know folks probably don't want to buy another can. But, I mean, that's something that maybe we can, with the blight inspectors, maybe they can go around and just maybe take a note of like, maybe we should talk to this, this building or that building, or, because, I mean, some of these buildings, it's all tenants, so the owner's not seeing what's going on.
Right.
So if maybe we have that, okay, you know what, this building every week it's like this. So then maybe somebody needs to get through to the owner to tell him, I think it's time you buy another can. Yeah.
I think that's
Yeah.
correct. And even if it's a letter sent to the building owner
Right,
from the building department, letting them know that we've had continual reports on
Yeah.
overflowing gardens, you need to have an extra pickup, or you need to get an additional dumpster or garden. But that's gonna take personal attention, because we get the same
Right.
repetitive buildings and people that are either overflowing garbage. And unless somebody has a personal contact with them, it's just gonna continue because, like you said, the tenants, they're just gonna keep throwing it in there.
but if
And
you
they don't know.
continue to get, complaints on one certain building,
Sure.
then maybe you can go to the water department and get the owner's information and maybe reach out to the owner that way. I mean,
It's all in the city system, so it's, if
Yeah.
it's water, it's building,
Right.
it's all.
You can go ahead, yeah.
Clayton Riggin with the Berwyn Public Health District. I used to live in Chicago for the last 5 to 6 years, and every time that I would have to renew my lease, in my lease packet, I have a page from the city of Chicago, and that page has to do with their own local ordinances with rodent. Second page is bed bugs. one of the things was they were holding both the tenant and the landlord accountable. I don't know how that they had, if they had some kind of system where all of the landlords that were registered in the city, in that municipality, had to operate under that ordinance. But the first thing I saw, and we had to fill out, both the landlord and myself was on that lease, and it was the responsibility of who was responsible for what as far as pest. I wrote down here integrated pest control management, IPM, which is what most pest control companies are using. So that's one point. Holding, it's not just pointing the finger at just one, at a certain, group or a business owner. It's a multifaceted approach. How can we tie in a system of the landlord's responsibility? Because anytime I get a phone call, if it's a rodent complaint, I always say, okay, if you don't mind me asking, have you checked your lease? And it might be specified, for pest control, On top of that, do you make that the standard where landlords are responsible for upkeep on their property and further, rodent treatment? Because rodent treatment, it's going to take multiple approaches to it. So
Yeah.
just wanted to kind of add that kind of angle into this whole thing.
Can you provide us with a sample of that part of the ordinance for the city of Chicago?
Yeah.
So that we can kind of.
That'd be great. Yeah.
I just recently inquired with Mr. Perry, who does the business licensing. I'm looking to find out if if there's parameters around how much, the size of the garbage can or the frequency of pickup for certain businesses, to see if that's not in place, then that might be something that the city can do it as an ordinance to say,
Yeah.
if you have this many units, you have to have this much garbage, or it has to be collected this often. And so that might be one way we can combat the
Yeah.
trash situation. The other part is I do believe with Scott that it's personal conversations. Like you can send out all the letters that you want, but if they're not being read, then they're just going into the trash. And that was kind of the idea between the volunteer group, is that they're able to go out and have those personal conversations and say, hey, if you need help, we can help you. But this is what's aiding to the problem, and can we help you fix this? It's just, I understand that volunteer groups you have to manage them, and you have to get volunteers, you have to keep them motivated because they're not being paid. But I do think that would be that community engagement. It's the community helping the community. That was kind of the idea behind it. And I saw it, I read a really great article about a citizen rat patrol in the city, and they were all working together, and it was a very positive experience for everybody.
Just on your comment with the volunteers too, just with my time being with the Berwyn Public Health District, I know just with my position when there is a need for volunteers, because there is also the population in Berwyn that knows about the issue of the rat issue, but they cannot do anything about the issue because they can't walk outside their door, whether it's difficult, a mental deficit, or they're not, they don't have the mobility. But I just think that's really important. I have already 2 or 3 that come up to mind where I was looking for volunteers or some kind of financial service because this person wanted to get their grass cut, and they couldn't, and obviously those conditions were harboring rodents too.
Yeah.
So I agree with you with the volunteer aspect, even though it's a huge thing to take on as far as that managing.
For sure. And I think that, I appreciate that, and it kind of leads me back to what I was sharing with the mayor at our last meeting, that, and anecdotally just had a senior, and I've had several reach out to me in the past, but I had a senior who had an issue, couldn't get out of bed, but was getting hit with different tickets, right? Actually went and saw that they had a ticket on their garbage can too, and they didn't even know. It was just people throwing garbage in their recycling bin, and so had to clean that out, cut down their weeds, all that stuff, because there's no way for them to do this, right, physically. And financially, they're on a fixed income, dealing with being bedridden, they're not going to be able to find someone to come out and take care of that. And so I think, mutual aid is a really big part of this and figuring that out. But I also know that like our committee talked about for a really long time, like hiring people to help with this, you know what I mean? So I think that that's something that, when looking at the other budgets across cities and how much they're spending on this issue, we're spending less than 10% than some cities are that are our neighbors on rat abatement. And so figuring that out, I think is going to be really important too. And I want to talk a little bit more about that in our next section. But I think in terms of community education, I think it would be great for the city to continue to push forward with some ideas and formulate some plans as to how this can happen in a interpersonal way, but also in ways that are accessible to folks and speak to them and their needs, and also get them the information that they need when things are happening. And so it seems like we have a good list of things here in terms of like what to look into that I can put together on a communication for you all to continue to pursue. And I just want to take a pause to see if there's any last things so we can continue on with the agenda, because we got a couple other items to hit.
Well,
I would say one thing is, we're gonna need full-time attention to this, and not part-time.
Right.
So, and with that, it's gonna cost us money, on the city side. If it's 1 or 2 employees, it could be a vehicle. It could be just monitoring and getting reports out. I know Mary in the Blight area does a good job of putting everything in the system, but if there's a problem within an area within our ward, we need to see that there's activity.
Right.
And there's follow-through, and that, we can get involved as well. But we only hear about it when somebody complains to us. And then we report it. And we may get a email back saying, here's what we did, but
Right.
what is the follow-up?
Right.
And that's where the key thing is. We want to attack an area, and then we want it to go away.
Right.
We want the problem fixed. It may never get fixed. I know
Right.
there's 2 areas in my ward that they have not been fixed in 7, 8 years.
Right.
Not longer. But those are target areas that we should be on all the time.
Yeah.
So it's going to take bodies,
Yeah.
and employees, which is in return, we have to work with the city and the health department to see how we can, hire 1 or 2 people at first to just kind of monitor, get this going, have that personal conversation and connection, and then follow up with us.
Right.
So that's what I think we should target for, whatever that may be. If it's a supervisor and an employee or whatever it may be, that's really where we need to go. And on that, then they can be the pro at rats and rodents and things, and, we can continue to improve.
Right.
We've got 1 employee that basically is going to each business to make sure they have rat abatement or rodent, pest control, things like that. But I think the health department should be part of that. I think the health department does some of that, but the city's doing it. So we need to coordinate and collaborate with the health department to make sure that we all work together, because businesses is really health. Residential can be blight, but I don't know that the coordination, I might be wrong, the coordination between the 2 is really not there as strong as it should be.
It's a work in progress.
Yeah,
We just
and-
had a meeting.
Okay,
Yeah.
but we've been talking about this for 7 years. So, I'm just saying that we need to really have that going and have
Yeah.
a plan that there's a connection. If Clay goes somewhere, he reports, and he probably does, to Mary and so on and so forth, but, we need to see that as aldermen, and, we need to follow up as well.
Yeah.
Because we're getting the same calls from the same area and the same people, and they feel we're not doing anything.
Right.
And doesn't the BDC have funding for businesses as well to
So I-
help them abate?
Yeah, so I have the guidelines for the Finish Line grant, and I'm not sure
Yeah.
if, the health department
So
knows
maybe
this or
make
not,
them
and that's
aware
something we
of
can
that too.
provide. So there is some Finish Line grant that will pay a portion
Yeah.
of, not so much pest control, but to go in, to look at in an office, in a building, and if there's anything that they can use to repair in there, that rats are coming under the door, or there's a hole in the wall here, they can utilize some of these funds for that.
Yeah.
So those are things that, I don't know the whole program, but that's similar to what it is. They're not gonna pay for your, monthly.
Ongoing, yeah.
But they're gonna pay for, what do we need to do to secure this, so that it can help you,
Right.
avoid
Right.
rodents and rats and
Right.
things.
Right.
Well, to add to your statement, Scott, I noticed that there's quite a few abandoned properties in the city and properties that are in desperate need of repair. I have two just in my area alone, in my block that I share the alley with Kyler and Ridgeland, and we have a vacant lot with no house, no house, but a garage that's been deteriorating day by day for the last 15 years. Still a vehicle in there, but there's 4 holes in the roof now, and neighbor told me the other day that there were 8 set of eyes looking out of the roof. Raccoons moved in. Well, the rats can get in there too because it's full of debris or whatever. Then there's an abandoned house on Ridgeland that's been now abandoned like 6 years, and the boards are falling off underneath the porch, and it's a good harbor area for rats or other critters or whatever. So we have to start almost with the structures to prevent rats from an easy access to make burrows. And I think part of the problem is that the city is kind of their hands are tied because they can't go on private property a lot, and then they can see from the alley or from the street, and then they go to court, and the judge says, okay, do this, do this, do this, and they might do the bare minimum, and it's continued and continued and continued, and nothing seems to get accomplished.
So we should probably have legal look at that to see if there's something that we can do, because, we can't go and clean up somebody's property. We can't
Exactly.
walk on somebody's property. We have, I had a foreclosure house, 6 years it took
Sure.
for somebody to buy it and rehab it, now it's on the market. During that time, basically that's where the problem was.
Sure.
So to get there, it took a long time.
Took a-
Yours has been
yeah.
obviously a little longer.
Same time.
But we need to look at the legal ordinances, how can we do it, when do we step in? Because if we say we went and tore down the garage and cleaned up the property, we're out
X
10
amount of
grand,
dollars,
whatever
right.
it's gonna be.
It's gonna cost.
Are we gonna be able to get that money back when it's sold or whatever's gonna happen? It's a loss to us. So I know that's been an issue. So we might have to look at that to see if, if there's any teeth to what we can do. When can we get that money back?
Mhm.
What do other communities do? Are they held up to?
Well, question, just on that one property that has the garage and no house. Well, somebody's still paying, obviously, property tax on that property, and we can look into the tax rolls and then go after that person and say, hey, either
Sure.
fix the garage, and obviously it's unfixable, then, or tear it down,
Yeah,
but we have to have some kind of leverage
Sure.
right.
to go after these people.
Yeah, no, I understand. I think that's something we should look at, but that should,
Yeah.
be somebody at the building department that looks at it. They're getting the notice from everybody saying this is a problem. Who owns it? Is it held
Right.
up in court? Did somebody pass
Right.
away? Is it in trust, whatever, and then we can look at it from there. But it stems from somebody really looking at, like, a personal touch on that building, just like we're talking on a personal touch with the rest of some of these repetitive problems.
And then
Can-
when you
can
said, oh, excuse me, Mark, then when you said that, first of all, the city's hands are tied because they can't go on the private property, like you mentioned, if the property's sitting vacant for X amount of years, the rats love it because, hey, we're not being bothered here. And we can go feed over here and come back, and there's the problem. So there's where we gotta kinda start.
Marge, did you have something?
Yes, I was just going to make a recommendation that we move forward. One of the questions that I had in preparation for the meeting was wondering what the RFPs that you guys put out showed, and what was the cost, what was the suggested cost? Because I know that the abatement company that we use right now is grossly underfunded.
Yeah.
And the city is going through budget talks right now with all the various departments. And so we should really, in your communication and recommendation to Amber, make a recommendation that we double at least the amount of money spent on rat abatement. The $30,000 that the city pays to Awesome Pest doesn't pay for one employee.
Right.
And we can't expect superlative service if we aren't paying for it. And so I think we're putting Awesome Pest at a great disadvantage. And so one thing I think this committee should vote on right now is making a strong recommendation to the city to drastically increase the amount of money that we will pay for rat abatement, and request that the township increase the amount that it
Yeah,
puts
their share, yeah.
The township, I'm sorry, the Berwyn Public Health District puts in only $6,000. We did boost the budget several years in anticipation that we would be getting an intergovernmental agreement from the city in order to pay more for more services. I mean, one question that we have is, if we give you more, what other services are we going to get other than the status quo that we're paying for right now?
Right.
And so we have had money in the budget, but we haven't had an IGA.
Mm.
And so, you know, it's good to talk about strategy, but I think we
Right.
also have to talk about
Yeah.
where we are today
Yeah.
and how we can boost our efforts by putting some money toward whomever we employ, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I loved the ideas that Amber brought up about the for want of a better word, the birth control food that we
Yes.
pay for,
Yeah.
that we would put down for the rats.
Yeah.
That's costly.
Right.
That costs a lot of money. And I don't think that the Cheerios, the people that own Awesome Pest, should have to put that on their backs in order to supply
Right.
that kind of food. So we got to be able to put some money up right now so that we could get started on, you know, the current rat abatement that we're using, adding the, what's the word?
Cottonseed oil?
Cottonseed oil or whatever.
Yeah.
Right.
that Amber
Fertility.
Amber
Yeah.
talked about. And then, you know, and we can do that immediately.
Yeah.
And then we can push the study of
Yeah.
feral cats, you know,
Absolutely.
down the road a little bit to another meeting, but certainly put that in so that you need direction. I don't know, tell us what kind of direction you need. Like, what do we need to tell you so that you can fly with more help?
Yeah.
Well, you're giving it to me. I mean, you're saying research, you know, a feral cat program, research community engagement, what we want that to look like. I have ideas for looking into, you know, parameters regarding residents, adding teeth to the blight citations. I mean, these are all things that I'm putting on my to-do list right now. But absolutely, I agree with you. How are we going to pay for it? Which is a big question. And my thing was like, what are we paying for, right? Like, how much do we need? But you're absolutely right. That cottonseed oil product is more expensive than the ordinary anticoagulant poisons. And if we want Joe, Awesome Pest, pardon me, to go in that direction, he is going to need more resources. And you're right, he does need resources currently. I love the idea of better partnerships with the health district. I think better partnerships overall is how we're going to be successful.
Yeah.
But yes, I've got my to-do list.
Yes, for sure. And Marge, thank you for
Yeah.
pushing us, because that was going to be agenda item 2 is something that we talked about for months, right? That we needed to act quickly and urgently with giving Awesome Pest or whoever was going to be our vendor, our contractor, the resources necessary to address this in the
Absolutely.
short term, and then think about in the longer term or midterm, what are these other programs that can come alongside that to make sure that we're doing everything we can on a citywide level to have a comprehensive plan. So, I mean, we can do that right now. I'd be happy to make a motion for that, or if
Marge,
you would
would
like
you
to make
just-
the motion.
What do you think would be like an appropriate amount for the health district to be able to handle at this point in time?
I'm not going to tell you. What are you willing to put up?
Like
Here's
if we
a
were to go
question
to
that
like
I have.
75K and have the health district match that, is that something that would be doable within the budget?
It would certainly be something that we could take to the health district. I mean, they just ponied over $1 million for a soccer field. They're flush, I guess.
I mean, even if, I think we were at like 35,000, right, for the city?
Yeah.
For, so even if, you know, the city put in 30 to 50 into the budget, and then the health office another 30 to 50. I think that's a decent number to start with.
So if you're making that motion, I will definitely second it, because they definitely need more money to do more,
I
and
mean,
buy bait
I
and
think-
whatever.
Or
Yeah.
at least
I
from
think money
35, take us
is
to-
important too, but I think the city, we should have the city, and they can do this maybe in the next couple of weeks, is do a time study. How much time are we currently spending, the staff here? If it's Josie, going out to the businesses, time, money, if there's a vehicle being used, if there's gas, follow-up. The other thing I know with Awesome is, you know, they put bait boxes out there, and then the next week they go, somebody stole it, put it in the yard. So, you know, do we inventory the bait boxes? Do we know the location? Do we, you know when one's stolen so that we can, you know, keep track of that as well? Because there's a lot of, we're probably spending a lot of money on stuff, but we're not capturing how much this is gonna cost. So we
Right.
can say we need 2 employees at, you know, $50,000 a year with benefits or more, whatever we need to put that together so we can go back to say, this program's gonna cost $200,000 to start a year, $150, whatever it may be. The $6,000 here and the $5,000 here, that's nothing. And obviously, we're trying, but we're not putting, you know, we need if it's a separate supervisor and an employee or 2 employees, that's what we need to do.
Yeah, and so I think it's, to me, and you all can tell me how you feel about this, I feel like it's a both and situation where you have, like, when we met for months talking about like how we need to support the efforts more with more resources, getting out more bait, right? Having more opportunity for our contractor to be able to do what they need to do. And we know that who works with us right now bends over backwards and spreads everything they can to get it out there. But is that enough in this moment for us to stop the issues and stop the bleeding in certain areas of the community while you're doing that research? Because the reason we went out for a consultant, and this has been brought up in a bunch of different ways by a bunch of different folks on this committee, was to put together a plan for that. Like exactly what you're saying. We talked about this, right? And so that consultant, whether it was going to be a big, you know, contractor that does, you know, work on a college campuses or at different cities and municipalities, or if it was going to be an individual, that person, what they should be doing is figuring out what is the ideal plan for Berwyn in terms of staffing, right? In terms of mitigation, in terms of strategies. And so I think that could still happen while we double it, because doubling it is still like a drop in the water in terms of like how much other cities are spending, and it can maybe give Awesome Pests the room they need right now to attack the issues and hotspots, to really get in there, and then to shift potentially talking about like what are we going to be paying for to a more humane, more environmentally friendly, you know, baiting, you know, mechanism, which I think is something that we all sort of agreed on that
Yeah.
would be
Yeah.
beneficial for our community.
And
Oh.
if it comes to pass that we start up this feral cat program, that money can be used for that. So, you know, if nothing else, if we just do that one thing that we've all agreed that we want to move forward with, there's got to be some money for it next year. So I don't think there's any reason not to put forward an increase right now.
I do have an invoice or a breakdown of costs, what Awesome Pest is buying and how much it costs. So I do have that for you. I agree, we need to know what we are spending and what we're spending it on to really calculate how much we need and also what we're going to do. I do think that a staff person would be beneficial to focus on the rodent mitigation, at least in the beginning. And the thing about the plan that I put together is, if the plan works, you will not need as much mitigation down the line, because if the rodents aren't reproducing and there's cats, that will deter them from starting new nests in the area. The whole population is going to diminish, and so you won't need as much money to go towards it in like 3-5 years. So that's nice. That money will be able to be reallocated somewhere else later on. But yes, We also need to know like how much of the cottonseed product that he's gonna need, what is the cost for that? If we're going to do traps, what are those gonna cost? The nice thing about traps is they can be reused, so it's not like a constant replenishment of product. But those are all things that we need to kind of price out with Joe. And then we also have to give Joe that direction that this is what we want you to do. But we have to give him the resources and to be able to do it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do have this for you. I can give this to you.
Well, Amber, who works with Joe for the abatement? Who works like from the city side of it?
Mary Gdini is his main point of contact.
Okay.
I just wanted to add that with the Berwyn Public Health District, myself and my coworker are rolling out the process with the rodent prevention program with the food establishments also in town. We have roughly 250 plus or minus food establishments in town, ranging from low, medium, and high risk. That's on just the Illinois Food Code, but that's how we categorize them. That could be from a gas station to McDonald's to, a restaurant operation. What we've been doing, just as part of being a salaried employee with the health district and my coworker, we've been going out and trying to break up, adding in to try to go out to restaurants and food establishments with our information. In that, with that information, we're giving out a checklist. It's a pretty comprehensive checklist. It's a carbon copy checklist. On that checklist, we're not just checking if you have a pest care provider, because that pest care provider, we are checking into that, but we're also checking, did they also service for rodent treatment too, because sometimes they just have bug issues. That's one route. We're also going about, is your door left open in the back? How often is your door leaving? We're walking with the managers around the whole premises of the food establishment. Is your grease trap lid closed? How's the bottom of the grease trap? Are you keeping up on that kind of stuff? To dumpsters, it's pretty comprehensive. So in just one anecdote, 2 weeks ago I had a anonymous complainant call in, and it was a rodent issue at a food establishment. I went to that food establishment, and we had given them that folder, and I just went right to the checklist, and then I walked around with one of the staff members. I marked off what I saw and didn't see in compliance, out of compliance, and said, okay, I'll check back with you, give them a reasonable amount of time, and we're checking back in with them too. So I just wanted to share what the health district was doing, and that we're trying to do our part just with the issue.
One thing people need to know is that we don't have the health district doesn't have the ability to ticket.
Right.
And that is one of the things that we have been discussing and trying to get an IGA with the city to allow Clay and Jesus to issue a ticket, so they would have to come to local ordinance court and explain why Clay has to go 3, 4, 5 times to
Right.
this one establishment in order to try to get them to comply, because it's all voluntary right now. And
Right.
we know that people who get LO tickets for high grass and have to appear, cut their grass before they appear or soon after they come before the administrator. So I think that might be a good recommendation to put in your communication, that the city do an IGA with the health district to allow them to ticket food establishments.
It's true.
And bring them before the local ordinance court.
Yeah, so can we agree on a recommendation to enter into an IGA with propose, work out an IGA with the health department to ask them to match our rat abatement budget, enter into a data sharing agreement with them in terms of reports and all those sorts of things, and as well as the ability for ticketing.
About 4 years. And I don't know why. I thought that the city and the health district had already discussed that, and that's why we were doing it.
Well, yeah, we had that disaster early on in our committee where both the health department and the building department brought forward the same report that they had been working on for the last 2 years about businesses and their rat abatement. So both of them were doing a survey at the exact same time. So that's why I included the data sharing portion of that, so that those types of communications would remain open between the health department. Sounds like, you're already working on that, but God, they've been working on that every time. And every time we start saying this stuff, they say we're working on it, and then nothing happens. So something's got to happen, or we got to say, they said no, we're moving on, whatever. But we got to figure something out. Can't keep circling back to we're going to have a conversation about having a conversation.
I'm just curious if we were to move forward with your very comprehensive IGA, which I appreciate, would it be possible if the health department could ticket, and their checklist is far more comprehensive than the city's, could they, like, instead of shared responsibility, they do businesses, the city focuses on residents?
Yeah, I believe as of right now, that's kind of the goal. That's
Right.
where everybody's heading towards.
Is that- that's-
Yeah, there
that's
was
the-
just some miscommunications that
Okay.
caused people to be doubling up work in the past.
Okay.
That was our goal from the beginning. And I
Okay.
think we weren't, obviously connecting, so we weren't getting the health department going out there or the meetings, and now we're both doing the same thing. So if we
But-
focus on residential and they focus
Right.
on business, and we have a system that we can communicate to each other, they can pull up, our system in the building department, if there's a special area that just says, residential or whoever it is, business, they can pull up that portion. They can't go into all the other stuff, but they can go into the portion that says health or what, and go from there.
Well, I mean, I feel like that information still needs to be shared, because we don't have a business corridor and a residential corridor. It's all woven together everywhere. So, there are people who live right across the street from restaurants, all up and down Roosevelt. There's, there's apartments above the restaurants at Roosevelt that would fall into residential / business. So I think all that information needs to be open and accessible to everybody when we're talking about that. So there's not as much as there's going to be a focus on the health department doing business and a focus on the city of doing the residential, there needs to be, if there's a spot where you have 3 houses that have dens right behind a restaurant and they're kind of going back and forth across the way. I know we have that with Toronto right there. There's a couple of homes where it's like kind of a triangle where they're running back between all of those. That would have to be like, a group project to figure that out, because if you push them out of the business, they're going to go to the residential. If you push them out of the residential, they're going to go to business. So
Well, that's what Scott was saying, right, that have a system where the health office can see, the homes, and the city can see the businesses, what's
Right.
going on.
Right.
So, yeah, that's what.
You go in to
they
see
were
if their
just
license
talking
has
about.
been renewed,
Right.
or
Right.
if their license is renewed, where's their rat abatement
Right.
information or road
There you
abatement
go.
information in
Right.
there. It all should be in a in a portal.
I think,
Um,
yeah, the problem is, I think we already had a discussion with Jim Frank about being able to share the information, and he, if I remember, my memory could be faulty, he didn't think that we could have the same system. So, the information would have to be PDF'd or something over, and then somebody put the information in.
That's crazy.
There's got to be maybe a new system that can be
Yeah.
designed
Even
or
a login,
purchased
even
just
if
for
that
this.
person got, the person from the city, so if we can't have your software, whatever program you guys have, at least the person here in the city could maybe download that, right, and log in, get a login where they can log into your system, and vice versa, right? The person who's working here.
So they can share the information.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, maybe necessarily combine the 2 softwares, but at least have
Yeah, we
logins.
don't have that technology.
Where
We
you-
don't have a cloud system like the city where you can, we're very limited,
what are you doing over there? Got pen and paper?
pretty much.
NCR paper.
Can we?
Pretty soon we're gonna
Excel
have a
sheets.
soccer field.
Online Excel sheets, basically.
I think
Excel
if,
sheets?
Yeah, online
sheets?
Excel sheets.
Uh,
if we could get you know,
Okay, so you
IT
do Google
involved
Docs and
in
you
both
share that
entities and say,
document
where do we
with
need to
somebody
be
in
and
the
how
city,
can we do
that's
it?
it.
It might cost us
You can
some
share
money in
that
the long
document
run.
with anybody in
It
the
could be a
world,
long-term goal.
And they can make changes if they want and vice versa.
But to have that separation, just, it hasn't worked and it's not gonna continue to work.
It's a
Right.
good
mean,
recommendation to put on there.
We're still getting stuff in our mailbox about things that could be PDF to us. I mean, that's kind of where we're at with that. And then what do we have to do? We have to scan it or take a picture of it to post it on Facebook.
And I thought I had it bad in the nonprofit sector. That's rough. So, I'd like to pause for a second because I feel like what Alderman Carmichael has brought up, what Clerk Paul has brought up, connects to a lot of the things that I was going to have us talk about in terms of like what this committee has wanted to recommend over the year or so plus that we were active. And so just wanted to check in with you, Clerk Paul, after hearing Carmichael's proposal. Like, what do you think about that? Do you think that that's something based off of your proposal as well? Like, do you think that that's a good compromise, a good place to start, or what are your feels? And other people, please jump into.
I would say that the health district would be open to review any recommendations put forward by the city. We, of course, would have to have lengthy discussions with our lawyer, just like any other governmental entity. I know that the health district, initially, I think the fact that the city recognized that it needed to have more of a comprehensive control over the issue may have been the reason why it took the rat abatement issue away from the health district and decided to do it on their own and just have the health district pay monetarily.
Mm.
And that makes sense to me. If you need to comprehensively know what the right hand and left hand is doing.
Right.
And I don't know. I think, if you talk about the cost of upgrading systems and connectivity and all that kind of stuff, the costs are going way beyond, and I think the health district would just like to kick in money and let the city do whatever needs to be done. I mean, obviously, we're paying 2 health district employees right now salary and benefits in order to do the restaurants, when perhaps another city employee took that on without communicating to the health district that now we have 3 people that are going and, tormenting the same restaurant owners with
Different form.
questionnaires and forms.
Yeah.
So,
Well, let me ask you this then. I think Alderman Carmichael, you talked about potentially adding data sharing to that. If we were just to talk about an IGA that had the health district match the budget or match what the city is giving, along with
the health
allowing you all
district is
to-
not interested in just giving the city money.
okay,
The health district is interested in knowing what it would be paying for,
right,
so that it could turn around and tell its constituents what their money went to when we assess taxes. So, what are we gonna pay for? We're not just gonna pay for half of the bill currently. We would like to pay for half of a good program that's actually gonna target the problem.
right. Yeah, I know. I think
Yeah.
that makes a ton of sense. But
So if you want to send an IGA over to the health district and ask us to pay more, I'm sure that we'd be amenable to that, but what more are we paying for?
right, yeah.
We're not going to pay more against a contract currently with Awesome Pest where you only pay them $35,000.
Right.
Because you've
No,
been
no,
happy
yeah.
for years just to take our little $6,000
No,
against that payment.
yeah.
You don't even bill us. I
What's
would like
it-
to say that I have, over the years, had to ask for the bill and walk it over to the health district.
So to clarify that too, and I appreciate that response. I think that's real, and that's something that we've
See,
all
I'm
been
trying
thinking
to
about.
represent the health district. I have my
Yeah,
jacket
yeah. I don't know.
with the township patch.
So really defining responsibilities, and that's what we
Right,
talked about
right.
for the last two
Yeah.
abatement ad hoc
But
committees.
also just to add though that I think, and correct me if I'm wrong if this wasn't what you were saying. I just want to make sure that I'm being clear too. Not necessarily to match the budget that we have right now, but I thought it was more along the lines to come in and go back to what you were saying, that we need to like double this in this moment if we want to take this seriously. And so maybe it wasn't necessarily that the health district would come in at like 16 or something now instead, and the city would come in at 16, but that we still would get to that number of 60 to be able to address the issue in a more urgent way right now, knowing that we're going to add, because I think that this committee, based on how we talked about this today, is really interested in the Feral Cat program. Yes, more research, but also like move forward with it, figure out what, you know what I mean, what the plan could be, and how we can do this and get this started. The ticketing, in terms of the ticketing, like getting that in an IGA, right? Making sure that that's something that we start exploring so that you all have some more bite to, you know, the outreach and check-ins that you're doing. But then continuing to think about, you know, the community education piece, the different types of bait, the ability for Awesome Pests. I mean, right now, Awesome Pests, at least based on my experiences with them, is not able to address hotspots in the way that we need them to, right? Because they don't have the funds to do that. And so I think it's important that we think about the fact that we haven't increased this budget in the times that we've met over this last several years. And if we want to get back on track, like how are we doing that in a way that is, you know, based off of data and how much it's going to cost, but also gets us some movement now. I mean, I've been having these meetings for almost a year and a half, right? So like, when are we going to actually take action on this issue in a way that is going to change, you know, the material conditions of people in the community?
I think an IGA is a great start, though. I think we definitely need to move on getting an IGA with the health office.
Absolutely.
Like, agree to that immediately, and then, you know, like Marge said, okay, we want 50,000 for the feral cat program, and then we want another 30,000 for whatever, the communications part of it. But we have to think about those things. So I think the main thing right now is getting an IGA, right? Because we have an attorney has to look at that, get an IGA going, and then we can go into more funding. But if we don't, you know, say, okay, we want 50,000 specifically for the feral cat program, like Marge is saying, you know, where the health office can say, okay, we gave the city 50,000 for the feral cat program. Or are they going to give it to us for, you know, the IT part of it? I mean,
Right.
let's think of something that it's going to go to if you're going to do that. But I think the most important thing is that intergovernmental agreement, because once you have that, then everything else will follow.
Absolutely.
So I don't know if you have this, but I just asked Amber to give me this. This is a breakdown of their Awesome Pests costs. So the cost for the materials, for the bait and all of the other things that they use, is $1,549.80 a month. Their cost for a labor is $2,400 per month. So you can see how it adds up.
About 3,000 something a month.
What was that first number, Marge, the supplies?
$1,549.80.
And that's just for 1 month?
And then the other one was 2,000 something.
Oh, they don't eat much.
So that number's coming out to
Hopefully they only eat once.
$47,388 a year, which would be more than what we're saying we're budgeting.
Well, according to the last contract that we saw, right?
Right.
It was
Yeah.
around
That's all we could
35.
find, right?
Yeah.
That was all
Yeah.
we could find.
And every month I'm sure can fluctuate, you know, because of the amount of work if he's out there in the street so much that it's
Yeah.
gonna be less.
So, you know,
And I'm sure the cost of the bait that they have to purchase has gone up, so
Right.
And, you know, I do like the, Amber Dawn's idea about that new food, right?
Mhm.
So I think that we should find out how much something like that costs. Because, I mean, we can go ahead with the intergovernmental agreement, we can ask the town anything, but if it's 30,000 for feral cats and say another 30 for that, then we could just say, hey, we want 60,000
Yeah.
for this and that, but we don't even know the cost yet.
Right.
I have a question, Amber. When you talked to Awesome Pest, would they be doing the trapping, or would we have to get another company to do the trapping?
So this is a conversation that we've been having. One of the roles of the possible CSOs or other city employee, if you don't want it to be a CSO, would, we're looking in to see if they would need training and certifications and what the liability would be around if they did the traps, since we're not dealing with poison. Also, cottonseed oil is not a poison, so would they need special training to help with that? So basically, kind of giving Joe a full-time city employee as an assistant to deal with the traps,
Okay.
to help rebate
Yeah.
the traps. So also giving him more money to pay for the products we want him to use, but
Right.
also giving him help. That was one of the, like, the ideas around that additional city person, because then that additional city person can get on residential property, knock on doors, things like that, which Joe
Right.
does, but it's just help and then
Right.
oversight as well.
The Awesome Pest would be able to hire an employee at less expense than we would.
Yeah,
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
and not pay a pension.
I mean,
See, he's gonna need more manpower too, because if he does put out more traps, and he's gonna catch,
Yep.
let's say raccoons, possums,
Well, they're
whatever,
in-
he's gotta relocate those animals.
Well, so the traps that we're talking about is, it goes in the same bait box that you'll see now that has the
black
poison in it.
ones.
Oh,
But inside of that box is a snap trap.
I'm
Yes.
talking about it like an animal trap.
Nope, not,
Oh,
nope.
totally
not-
different.
Totally different.
like a big mousetrap.
Yes, but it's
Okay.
inside a box so that other animals can't get in there.
Can't get in there, okay.
But you're absolutely right, those traps will need to be maintained.
Yes.
Yeah.
And also, the cottonseed oil product will also need to be replenished more often, because they'll eat it and they won't die, but we want them to keep eating it. So that there will be more manpower required from Joe.
Absolutely.
Yes,
Absolutely.
And so I
Absolutely.
think that what I'm hearing the committee kind of move me in is to start getting prices for these things.
Yes.
So I can definitely do that. I can price out a CAT program. I can price out a staff to possibly run a volunteer program. And I can price out what Joe will need as far as resources in regards to kind of changing direction.
Yeah.
Okay.
Then we can, I would also, I mean, start the IGA.
Mm-hmm.
I've attempted to reach out to and try to find who's responsible for Cicero's rat patrol program too. So I know that they have like the Crown Vics roving around Cicero too. So possibly reaching out, or if you haven't already, but trying to find a model structure of their employment and what their program entails, and then not have to reinvent the wheel. So just want to make sure you're awesome. Cool.
And they spend almost $400,000
Wow.
on their road abatement. So hopefully it won't
year?
cost that much.
A year?
Yeah.
Yeah.
400.
It might have been even more with pension.
We saw that before, yeah.
Yeah.
We heard 500
But theirs is all
last time.
in-house.
Wow.
Their road abatement is all in-house.
Yeah.
So that's one of the big differences. But yes, I need to review this in further detail, but yeah, I can give you some more information on that as well.
Okay. So, just to get us to close out and get some next steps here, can you share again, Amber, the 3 things you're going to price out? You said pricing out.
Yes, I will price out the possibility of a CAT program, like what that would cost the city. I will price out a staff person to run a volunteer program and be kind of like a go-between the different
From Joe
governmental
to-
entities,
Okay.
like a project manager type situation.
Right.
and I will price out what Joe would need in order to move in the direction of traps and cottonseed oil products.
Okay. And then does the committee feel good on, once you have that completed, like meeting again to finalize some type of recommendation for what we think the city should be spending on it, and hopefully bringing in the health district to support on something, as there will be some actual tangible things to point to that are like, hey, these are the things we're going to be bringing to the table, that are new, that are going to be innovative, they're going to be effective, that are, that have data behind them.
Yep. Yep, let's get, and let's get another meeting in like early December or something like that to then we'll have that information and then.
Well, as
2
soon as-
weeks.
2 weeks?
Yeah,
Yeah.
sure.
See?
You think 2 weeks is good? Okay.
And then maybe at that point, we can put
Yeah, let's
a
keep
priority,
rolling.
what's high,
Right.
low,
Right.
what's most important that we want pushed first,
Right.
second, third, so we can put some timelines on that.
Yeah.
Because if we've done it before, we just give recommendation and
Right.
they sit,
And get that
and
IGA.
we need to do that as well.
Well, yeah, so that's, go ahead, yeah.
Would you like me to also kind of open up communications between the health district and the city regarding that IGA
Yes.
as far as like who wants to do what and that
Yes.
kind of thing?
Yeah, I think that would be,
helpful?
yeah, I think that'd be great. And then I guess I just have questions for folks
Yeah.
who have experience with IGAs.
Yeah.
Is this something that we need to get rolling now, get started now in this next
Yeah.
communication, or is it something that we could do
Yes, no, I would
at the
start.
same time? What are your
It would
thoughts?
be something that you would want to get rolling now,
Okay. Yep.
because
Yeah.
we were working on an IGA from April, and it's gonna be on your agenda Tuesday to vote on. So,
Oh, yeah,
do the math, 6 months.
Okay.
okay.
We still gotta get ours.
So this is gonna be, I mean, I'm gonna put together, because I want, in all transparency, folks to be able to see where we're moving towards, and so I'll put together a communication of like, what we shared for you in terms of next steps and everything, and like what you're working on, and then also work on the IGA with the health district for this as well.
And the IGA doesn't have to be complete, right?
Yeah.
You can put up an IGA just with an increase in funding
Right.
in order to pay for the
Right. the feral
contraceptives and
cats are-
the
yeah.
cat contraceptives.
Exactly.
You just love saying it that way.
That's what it is.
Oh man, that's
And all that other stuff.
yeah.
Yes.
I
Okay.
think that's a brilliant idea.
Yep.
Okay.
I mean,
Yep.
you know,
I think so.
Sounds good, we have
when,
consensus.
when Amber brought that up, do what we're doing now, but also add this
Yep.
in order to prevent the,
And tentatively, when would we meet again?
So
you have a
you
date?
said 2 weeks. We
Yeah.
probably have it. Okay.
Yeah.
So do we want to look at a date?
In December?
I would say, yeah, the.
Excuse me, in November?
Maybe we go December only because of elections and other stuff
Oh,
too
after
that are
the
coming
election?
up. Yeah, or maybe
After,
like mid-November.
We
I'm not
could
sure.
go November 12th after the election.
Don't we have
That's
council
not,
that
that's
day?
not council for you, because you,
Oh, I don't know.
I think that's council. Yeah.
I would say early November, so we can get the ball rolling.
Okay.
yeah.
Because we're gonna need, I mean, we can put a placeholder.
Yeah, but
maybe with
election day is the 5th.
Some extra
We
money
don't
in the
wanna do
budget, but
that.
we need to get that in there.
How about November 13th? On a Wednesday.
That's a Wednesday?
Yep, November 13th.
November 13th tentatively?
I'm good with that if folks are good with it.
Same
Yeah.
time, 6
Yep.
o'clock?
6 o'clock.
6 o'clock on
Yep.
the 13th?
Yeah, that sounds good.
November, yep.
November.
So I'll send out a email to everybody, get us all on track with it, and then I'll send out these communications for the next meeting that we have,
Alright.
city council meeting.
Are we gonna talk about CSO rat abatement today, or are we pushing?
We could tackle that in the next meeting, I think,
Cool.
just so we are not here till 8:30,
Yeah.
because I think that'll be a longer
I think
one.
if we're gonna hire somebody in the city to do that we may not need, I think we should hold off on that. Let's see what the numbers we get on another person, how much that would cost, and go from there.
I would agree. I think if
Then
we're,
add to it, you know?
if we're looking at employees, the city's kind of segregated when it comes to employees, just do this in this box. that we need to hire people that just take care of rat
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
and
yeah.
not kind of combine. You know, I
Well,
know
like Amber
if we have a
said, that
CSO
one
that sees a rat and somebody's coming through somebody's yard, they
Right.
can make a call and say, I saw a
Right.
rat on 13th. and
We can work
whatever."
together for sure, yeah, but it
But
doesn't have to be,
It doesn't
yeah.
have to be somebody that's gonna be pulled over for a traffic stop over there when there's an accident to,
Right.
you know, stop traffic, when they're supposed to be,
Right.
checking on rats.
Right, and we already have, and the folks that are doing this are amazing people, but we already have people at City Hall that have these hybrid roles that are working in rat abatement
Exactly.
kind of spaces, and so like to give someone the full space to really do this, I think it's important
Right.
that we're not mixing that up. So I think to me it's like kind of a, like, you don't even need to look into this any further, Mayor Libero. Like, we're not really that interested in it, but we can always talk about it in the next meeting if we need to. But yeah, so we have our next steps. Yeah, I have all the notes here. Can I get a motion to close out the meeting?
Adjourn, or
A motion,
motion.
second.
All right. Motion by Aaronella, second by Scott Lennon. We're good. The meeting has ended at 7:31 p.m.